Ash, good to see you, my friend. You were on the other side of the pond here in the UK.
I am indeed, yeah. I'm in London at the moment, West London, in our office space. So I think last time we spoke, I think you might have been in the UK yourself. But
I was, yeah. Yeah, I
yeah,
was
hopefully we'll get to meet in person soon.
sooner than later. Gosh, I get over there often enough, but I know as busy as you are with Medishout, I don't even
Yeah.
know if you'll be there these days. So tell us a little bit about Medishout, its growth, and the solutions and problems you're addressing in healthcare.
Yeah, so well, I guess my journey starts with a bit of background to my former career, which was I was an orthopedic surgeon, which I still think is one of the coolest professions you could do. Maybe just behind being an astronaut. But I did love it. I worked mainly in the UK in the NHS, but I also spent time in South Africa. I worked as a surgeon in Malawi. So I always loved surgery. But I just grew frustrated at how inefficient healthcare systems are. And I thought, it's crazy that I'm canceling operations because I don't have the right equipment. Canceling operations because my light bulb in theatre was broken or the IT isn't working. Because it's 2020, 2020. We're in a modern era now of technology. Why are these problems happening? So I created a platform called Medishout, just to solve my own problems, maybe selfishly as a surgeon. I just wanted to fix my own problems in my hospital. But then I realized, that there's a real need for a platform like Medishout. It's basically a one-stop app where hospital staff can report any operational problem. So that problem could be IT, estates, facilities, medical equipment, sterile services, you name it, anything operational. You use one app, you say what the problem is, and we triage the data to the right team at the right time. So that team could be inside your hospital, or it could be your equipment manufacturers and OEMs, and they will then respond to you and let you know exactly when they're going to fix the problem. Joe, I sort of liken it a bit to Amazon. You can order anything off Amazon, and when you order something, you don't just order it, you can track exactly what's happening in real time. And that way, oh, parcel's arriving tomorrow. I better work from home in the morning, so I'm there to receive it. And that's the world we live in outside of hospital care. And I'm trying to bring that sort of philosophy into hospitals by getting everyone to collaborate on our platform. So yeah, that's a real overview of Medishout. I could probably dive a lot deeper, but I'll leave it there and see where the conversation takes us.
Yeah, yeah. So tell me a bit about the evidence-based outcomes to date so far with Medishout. And I know it's being used pretty prolifically in the NHS, and you're also expanding into the EU now as well.
Yeah, we are. I think we're predicted to be in 100 hospitals by the end of this year across the UK and Europe. And, I think that number will double or treble by next year. So, look, I think because of COVID, healthcare has realized it has to digitize to survive in many instances, and we have to become more efficient. And that's why we're really well timed in the market, that we're solving a very, very big challenge. I think the big thing for us is we spent a lot of time on product development and at the same time calculating our return on investment and using an evidence base to evidence to show, Medishout actually has an impact. So, for example, we did a really, and I think an impressive study about 2 years ago in the endoscopy part of a hospital. I always felt as a surgeon and a clinician that, endoscopy is really pivotal. Because in emergency cases, you might have to stop bleeders. But, in the long term, you're diagnosing really serious pathologies like cancer. But you do high volume and you've got really expensive equipment. And I recognized from my own work and from my colleagues' work that actually you might see cases that were cancelled, or you see there's a lot of logistics around getting an endoscopy unit functioning really well. So we did a study whereby we looked at, well, when one endoscope breaks, what happens? How much time does it take? And we worked in some hospitals where they were using Olympus as their sort of, contract provider to sort of provide the maintenance if things break down. And Olympus are an absolutely incredible company. And we've published this data now, and it showed when one endoscope breaks, it takes 9 hours of staff time. Because if you imagine you're in the endoscopy unit, your endoscope breaks, you've got to do a bit of a clean. You've then got to figure out, okay, this is broken. What happens next? You have to contact departments inside your hospital. So you need porters to collect it. You might need to send it to sterile services. You probably have to notify your biomedical engineering team because they'll have to document it. They might have to then, because they might actually control the contract with, your maintenance provider. You then have to contact the maintenance provider. So you'd have to, contact Olympus and call them and let them know what's happening. You then have to fill in loads of paperwork. You then have to get transport to get it delivered to the maintenance provider. You then get a loan replacement endoscope, and then you have to do exactly the same process in reverse. And then you have to keep calling your providers to get updates. So this is not an Olympus problem. This is what we're seeing with pretty much every manufacturer we're working with. But Olympus are amazing because they saw this problem early and thought, if we digitize this, we can solve this issue. So we entered a really, really exciting partnership with them. And now it's really simple. The endoscope breaks, the first person that notices reports from Medishout. We ping the data to all the internal departments in the hospital. So we integrate all the different systems so everybody knows. We ping the data to Olympus. Olympus can then reply to the customer and everybody in the hospital can see what's happening, and that gets updated. So we publish a data which shows that it used to take 9 hours of staff time. Now it's 4.5 hours. Customers are more satisfied. Olympus are really happy. It's not just a service portal. We're actually collaborating to solve challenges, to drive efficiency, to improve staff morale. And that publication is on PubMed, peer-reviewed journal. It's getting a lot of traction, and people are realizing these operational problems really do have a big impact. But I believe digital is the key. It's the solution to a lot of those problems.
So what's interesting is we're starting to see medtech continue to push forward with technology, and it's finally looking internal and saying, okay, how do we optimize our processes and optimize what we have already? Because there is a lot of waste of time, human capital, equipment, downtime, etc. So it's curious that has there been a similar service to this in the past other than some cursing and screaming and word of mouth to the maintenance team?
I mean, look, there's always systems out there. So, an email is part of the system. Writing things on paper is part of the system. There are some manufacturers who have service portals where you might be able to go onto a web portal and say what your problem is. But from what we can see in the market, we're possibly the first to aggregate everyone onto one platform and then digitize that. So it's the idea that your hospital staff open up one app and they might be able to talk to, I don't know, Johnson & Johnson or Stryker or Medtronic. And, these aren't necessarily companies we're working with right now, but I'm just giving example of companies I used to use their technology and work with their reps quite a lot. And I know when I was a surgeon, I would have loved to have Medishout throughout my 10-year surgical career. It would have just made my life easier. I would have been able to track my inventory, track the stock that's on the shelf, know when things are going to arrive, report when things are broken. If you think about it, the relationship between hospitals and reps is interesting. So your rep might be there with you to support you through an operation. And when they're there, I mean, they're like angels, especially when you're a trainee surgeon. I've been bailed out by reps who have helped me through operations. So I feel indebted to them. But what happens if another hospital needs them and they're not there? It's kind of a binary service. You either get the best service or there's often not much in between. And I believe, again, digital technology can resolve that. You can have chatbots for our app, which will help you self-resolve issues. You can get access to optex much quicker. You can book in time with your rep. So you can be much more organized to say, I need you for this operation at this time. Can you be there? And if they say no, I can be like, all right, let me just quickly move my list order around to last minute so that you can be there when I do need you. So yeah, I think there's so many different ways that relationship between hospitals and manufacturers could be improved through some of the services we're providing.
So you were a surgeon, Nadine Hashashharam surgeon, Elliott Street surgeon,
good friends of mine.
Yeah, and they've all seemed to have burnt the boats and left practice. Well, Nadine, I think, is still active somewhat on a monthly basis, but they're now CEOs of medtech-centric companies solving problems that they experienced themselves firsthand. And it seems relatively unique to the UK more so than to the US, because just using the three of you, Elliott, yourself, and Nadine, you're not making a medical device per se, but you're impacting the infrastructure and the ecosystem of medtech at large. Is that a different mindset coming out of the UK and the NHS from the professional perspective? And again, this is just your opinion.
Yeah, of course. I mean, look, first of all, Nadine's superwoman. So, she could make anything work in any system in any part of the world and would do really well. Yeah, I think for mere mortals like me, the story is slightly different. I mean, incidentally, Nadine is part of King's Health Partner Ventures, KHP Ventures, and they invested in Medishout earlier this year. So I do know her very well. Um, I think for me, my journey started where I was a surgeon on the front line and I witnessed the problems and I tried to solve the problem, like I said, initially for myself and then for my colleagues. And then momentum started to build. And I tried to do both. I thought, right, I love surgery. I've dedicated 10 years of being surgeon plus all my time at medical school. So half my life pretty much at that stage. But then I realized this is Medishout's bigger than me, and I can't do it justice if I remain full time as a surgeon. So I had to make a really difficult decision. I said, try and be the best surgeon in the world, or try and make Medishout a product that helps every other surgeon in the world. And I thought that's where the big impact is. It's Medishout. But you make a really interesting point. Well, what has enabled people like me, or Elliot or Nadine to be able to, transition from the clinical world to, I don't know, the corporate world or the entrepreneurial world? And I think in the NHS, we've got some really amazing programs. The NHS Clinical Entrepreneur Program is run by Professor Tony Young. And he's a surgeon still. And when he was a more junior surgeon, had amazing innovative ideas for how we can improve surgery, but he didn't have anywhere to take it because there wasn't that support system. And he said, I don't want to lose these ideas from the system because our frontline staffs have the best ideas because they're seeing the issues on the front line. So he created this program. There's now, I think, over 500 versions of Me and Elliot, which is how me and Elliot met. And it's how I met Nadine as well in this program. And so he's got this amazing ecosystem of industry partners, hospitals, CEOs, entrepreneurs, investors, and they're there to help people like me and Elliot. And I think that has given us the confidence and the network to say, do you know what? I can have a global impact here. And I've got really amazing people backing me. And that's given me the confidence to say, do you know what? Just go for it. Life's too short. You live once. You're not going to change anything by just doing the status quo. So you've got that. You've got the NHS Innovation Accelerator. We were part of the Microsoft, the Startups Accelerator in the UK. So I think all of these things really do start to feed into the support network that you need early on. And then hopefully you then just grow, in which case you grow the team and you make revenues and you bring investment, and then you can build, your own network around you.
What's the vision for Medishout? So you're in the UK doing a fine job there. You've moved into Europe. How about the US? That's a big bite of the apple, obviously in healthcare as well, and scalability. So what's the future in the next few years for Medishout?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess there's product vision, commercial vision. From a product point of view, we do want to be that one-stop app for all your operational processes. We want all the suppliers to plug into us because we can then give all the suppliers access to your customers in the hospital. We can get you better access to the data and communication. I sort of say, in the same way that you need Epic or Cerner for your patient records, I think you need Medishout for all your operational processes. So that's the product vision. In terms of where we want to go commercially in the expansion, yes, UK, Ireland, mainland Europe, that's all happening this year. America is obviously like a really, really big, I guess, dream for us, or ambition for us. And it's all about timing. We just closed a seed round a few months ago of £4.3 million. And I think most of that will focus on the European expansion, which, I think for any company, you've got to get that right, especially in your own patch and the countries nearest to you. But I think next year and our next funding round, we'll be really looking to enter new markets, hopefully with the suppliers we're working with and hopefully with new suppliers who we're yet to begin working with.
You're in a very interesting category right now. If you would have gone into medtech a decade ago and said, I'm working on an optimization platform that has nothing to do, maybe everything to do with surgery. I'm tracking efficiencies, inefficiencies across the board. You likely would have gotten a stare that people could not have computed that, especially coming from a surgeon. But now, especially in the US and probably abroad, in the US, I think the number's 49% of the hospitals are going to be working at a deficit this year and next year. And so optimization and efficiencies and making sure we're getting the highest performance out of our systems is critical. And this seems to be a trend in healthcare, especially in the large institutional settings. what's your thoughts in that area? Obviously, Medishout, you believe in that, but since you've been under the hood now in various institutions, what is it that the industry probably does not know or aware of at scale, unless you've been sitting in the pain bucket yourself in the middle of surgery and something goes out on you?
Yeah, I mean, again, look, this is my own opinion and how I see the system. I was at a conference last week called MedTech Europe, amazing conference, and a lot of people were talking about value-based healthcare and how suppliers can provide better value-based healthcare to improve, you know, improve life for customers and for patients, basically. But to answer your question, this is how I see it. I think we're really lucky to live in an age of healthcare where you know, big pharma and medical device companies have innovated so much in the last 50 years. I mean, it's phenomenal what you can do. You can do a hip. I mean, I was an orthopedic surgeon, so I use hip replacement as an example. I mean, I think statistics will tell you 95 to 96% of patients are happy after a hip replacement. It's a life-changing surgery, and that's amazing. But you have lots of companies now who provide amazing implants, and the satisfaction scores are probably similar across the board. So then what comes next? Okay, maybe you start to compete on price. Okay, great. But then what's the next layer to that? It's the service that wraps around the device that you're selling. And I think that's where the hospital systems are crying out for improved services. They're saying, look, like you said, we've got a deficit, or in the UK, we've got, I think, 7.4 million patients on our backlog, our waiting list, because of a backlog of care due to COVID. So the hospital systems are crying out for it. I believe the medical device companies want to contribute to improving the system. But I'll talk to the NHS. They don't make it easy because, how do you allow a big corporate company to come into your hospital and make changes to your pathways and say, well, we're going to change this and digitize that? So I think it needs that in between, the broker, which can say to the hospitals, all right, give us your data, show us your pathways, let us under the hood, and then put that onto one platform. And then you say to your suppliers, look, I can get you access to the customers who you want to work with, or to the data that you need, so you can provide a better service, so that you can make your own operations more efficient, so that you can improve your own supply chain and deliver the right kit at the right time. And I think that's where the next level of service provision needs to be. It's got to move away from just having a rep who's amazing when they're there, but can't help you if they're not there, to thinking about, well, how can we make sure we're providing a 24-hour-a-day service to hospitals to make sure that we're always supporting them and get them through those challenges that are happening at the moment in healthcare globally. It's a global issue. It's not just in the NHS.
Really interesting proposition, because your customer base are the suppliers to medtech. You could probably impact inventory, as you said, certainly keeping equipment online. And the more complex this equipment gets, the more that can go wrong with it. And then the other customers direct are the surgeons or the work teams, and of course the institutions. So who pays your bill? Do all of them contribute to that? Because you're helping them all.
Yeah. So I think the key thing is we don't double dip. So we don't charge a hospital and a supplier for exactly the same service. We look at who is being paid to deliver the service. So if you look at facilities management, often it's inside the hospital where that's being run. And the facilities management team get a budget each year, and they've got to service the hospital to make sure that things are clean, make sure that porters are collecting patients. So in that instance, they would pay to be on our platform, because we're going to digitize their services, make them more efficient, and enable them to provide better services to the whole hospital. But if a supplier who sits outside the hospital is being paid to provide a maintenance contract or delivery of equipment, they're getting paid to provide a service. So they will pay us because we're going to digitize their service. We're going to help them defend contracts. We might help them win more contracts. We're going to make them operationally more efficient. We're going to decrease the waste on their side of the relationship. The engineers will get photos of what's broken in advance, so they can plan how they're going to fix things much easier. So in that instance, the suppliers will pay us, a smaller fee because there's so many suppliers in the ecosystem. So that's how we commercially operate.
So you're an attractive model. You're a SaaS model, you're a subscription model, you're an ongoing revenue model, and you're sort of behind the scenes, but insinuated into everything. So I'm sure that the community itself will love you, and the investment community, if they get their eyes open wide enough, will see that this becomes an infrastructure immersion versus just a acute or sort of site of care. So very exciting times for you, Ash.
Yeah, no, it really is. I think we've had a lot of dreams and visions for many years, and it's nice in the last sort of 18 months, it's all coming to fruition. We're seeing the impact we're having on the front line, which is ultimately what it's all about. But honestly, I love the relationships we have with the customers that are coming on board, because every single one of them wants to impact healthcare positively. And we just partner up. It's a partnership. We work together to figure out what are the problems, how do we solve it together. The digitization piece sometimes is the bit that comes second. It's all about understanding how the healthcare systems work, what are the behaviors of your frontline staff, what are the actual problems they have that need to be solved. And then you sort of wrap that around the digitization piece to sort of get everyone focused to saying, right, this is the new way of doing things.
Well, fascinating. Congratulations. I'll continue to track your progress. You and I got to meet, I don't know, about 6 to 9 months ago, and I've been keeping an eye on it, certainly through some of your other fans over in the UK. Anything I didn't ask you before we head out that I should have?
As always, you ask fantastic questions. I do follow your podcast, so I think you've hit the nail on the head once again. And yeah, it's been a pleasure to tell you more about Medishout.
Appreciate it, Ash, and best wishes to you. And hopefully we'll get to see each other next time I'm over on that side.
Yeah, I really look forward to it. Thanks so much.
You got it. I'm Joe Mullings from 160 Studios. Be well.